Each week until Christmas, we have been lighting a new candle in the Advent bread. Symbols of hope, peace, joy, and love. As the season reaches its completion, we prepare for a new life with God. Our hearts soften, our arms open to embrace its brightness. This morning, we light the fourth candle. We light this candle as a reminder that there is no greater love, greater power in the world than love. Through this community, we become a blessing to one another. Our love is magnified and lives are changed. We can hardly wait any longer for the wonder of love to be revealed. May we risk enough to become one Lord and welcome holy saints.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. My name is Reverend Sally Fritchie, and I am so happy to serve as the Associate Minister to this congregation. We're a church of many different theologies and identities, united by our shared commitment to building community, seeking inspiration, promoting justice, and finding peace. We're still asking that everyone remain masked while we're sitting together on Sunday mornings because we want to be able to welcome even the most vulnerable into our worship space. You can look around at the color-coded lanyards of your neighbors and be aware and respectful of everyone's needs and boundaries. Also be aware that we'll be singing together today, so if you're nervous about being packed into the sanctuary here, we have spillover room just across the entryway in our fellowship hall where the service is being live streamed on our projector. That space is also great if you just need to stretch your legs or enjoy a little more wiggle room. We're a congregation of all ages, which means we embrace all the noises and little disruptions that our kids can bring into a Sunday morning. As always, anyone of any age is welcome to get a coloring kit from the box in the entryway, just near where the lanyards are. And after the time for all ages, our kids will be invited to head downstairs with their teachers for religious exploration. This Sunday is all about the ways our winter holiday traditions remind us to come together around a shared flame during life's coldest and darkest seasons. Tonight will be the first night of Hanukkah. This Wednesday is the winter solstice. Kwanzaa begins in just over a week, and as we've already said, today is the last Sunday of Advent. Thanks to our theological diversity, there are Unitarian Universalists who celebrate all of these traditions, including some of the families right here in our congregation. It's worthwhile to take a moment this time of year and remember that it's not all about Santa and Christmas trees and reindeer. There's so much richness and depth and important lessons to be learned from the many traditions marking this darkest and coldest of seasons. Whether this is your first Sunday here with us or your 1000th, whether you are here in the sanctuary, watching from Fellowship Hall, or watching from afar at home, know that this service is here for you. May you find in it something that you need. This congregation also chooses to begin every Sunday with a formal acknowledgement of the indigenous peoples of this land. It's a practice that connects us to the history of this specific place, to our role as stewards and members of a community that extends beyond our own present moment. Wherever you're joining us from today, take a moment, let your mind sink down into the deep history of that place, and honor the plants, animals, and people who have belonged to it over the millennia. Here on Green Street, we worship on the land of the Kaskaskia, Miamiwa, Bodwewadmi, Kickapoo, Peoria, and Oceti-Sakowin. These are communities that still exist today and still continue to fight for recognition, self-determination, and the preservation of our shared earth. We'll pause to take a breath in honor of those lives and as a reminder to support those ongoing efforts wherever we can. Thank you. And now I will welcome longtime UUCUC members Priscilla and Jerry to light our flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition.
Whenever we gather together, we light a flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, to mark out this time and space as special and significant. If you're watching from home and have a chalice or candle of your own to light, I invite you to join us in lighting it now and helping us create a shared circle of light and warmth, even across a distance. We light our chalice today with words from UU Minister Reverend Ashley Horan, printed in your order of service and visible on the screens. Please join me in saying them now. May love shine forth through us today. May light of reason guide our way. May hope, peace, and joy become a flame that burns in everyone. Come, let us be together.
Thank you. I'll invite you to please stand if standing is comfortable for you and join in singing our opening hymn, number 118 in the gray hymnal, This Little Light of Mine.
Let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you. Now, this is the time in our service when we like to tell a story or do something that is friendly to UUs of all ages and stages. And today's story is going to involve lights. So if there's anyone who wants to come up and get a light of their own to hold on to while I tell the story, I'll invite you up now. Now, as I said, tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. Does anyone here celebrate Hanukkah with their family? I think I know at least a few. So one of the things about Hanukkah is that families will light menorahs, which is a special kind of candelabra. It has all these arms, and first you light the middle candle called the shamash, and then each night you use the shamash to light one more candle until on the final night of Hanukkah, there's a beautiful row of lights that stay lit all night long. Have enough. So today's story in honor of the first night of Hanukkah is a true story. And it's a story that happened a long time ago, 30 years ago. In a town called Billings, Montana. So in Billings, Montana, in 1993, there were only a few Jewish families. And some of the people in Billings were bullies, and they hated anything that was different, which meant that they hated that there were Jewish families in Billings, since they had a different religion. Has anyone ever met bullies, people who really don't like things that are different? They would say mean and scary things, but most of the other people in Billings weren't Jewish, and so they didn't hear all the mean things that were being said and didn't worry about it too much. Then one Hanukkah night, a 5-year-old boy was lighting his menorah and putting it in his bedroom window. It wasn't the last night of Hanukkah, so it wasn't so bright, but there were enough candles that it could be seen from the street. And after he lit his menorah and he went out to go eat dinner with his parents, something horrible happened. A brick crashed through his bedroom window right where the menorah was shining and landed on his bed. It was a scary, scary time. The family didn't know what to do. They called the police and let them know someone attacked our house. We think it was because of our menorah. And with these bullies out there, maybe anyone with a menorah in their window might have a brick thrown at them. That's too scary. So what do you think? Should the few Jewish families who are in Billings blow out their menorah candles or stop putting them in their windows? Well, here's what happened instead. The newspaper of Billings printed a big picture of a menorah in that week's paper and said that anyone who wanted to stand against hate and bullying should put the picture in their window with a light behind it so that every house in the whole town could have a menorah in its window that week. So the bullies were going after the few Jewish families because they thought those families didn't belong. But when they saw how many houses had menorahs, house after house after house on every block, they realized that they were the ones who didn't belong. And none of the windows got smashed that winter. So sometimes when someone is getting bullied for being different, we might think it's smart or it's safe to hide the things that are making them stand out, when really what they need is to be supported and for others to find a way to be even more themselves, even brighter, bigger, louder, and let their light shine for everyone to see. So all of us will shine our light together today. You can take your light downstairs with you, take it home with you, even put it in your window. And if you want, as you leave the sanctuary today, you can come get your own menorah that you can take home with you and shine in your own window with your family. I'll put it right where I put the candles. Thank you for listening to the story of the long ago town of Billings, Montana. And now we will sing our children on their way downstairs to classes with the song 414 as we leave this friendly place, led by Janet.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
Each Sunday here at UUCUC, we make space to share the joys and sorrows closest to our hearts. We usually take a long pause with music to give folks time to write down the personal joys and sorrows they're carrying and wish to share. either on a card or in an email message, which you can send to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. Then the worship leader reads out those shared messages so we can celebrate each other's joyful news and support each other in our grief. During the pause while folks are writing and music is playing, those who wish to can also come forward and silently light a candle here on our altar table. Together we'll hear our blessing song, Long Time Son, and while Juan plays and we sing, you're invited to write the joys and sorrows you'd like to share, either on a card, which you should be able to find in the back of your pew or at the back table there, or in an email sent to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. If you wish to, you can come forward to light a candle and leave your card here in the basket. To do so. Thank you. First, a joy of my own submitted on behalf of David and Claudia Gross. I was honored to participate this week in creating a special goodbye ritual as Claudia and David have officially moved out of their house and into Clark Lindsay. A small group gathered in their former home's garden to reflect on the many memories held there and to scatter the ashes of several beloved family pets. The most unique part of the goodbye was leaving out 2 layers of wedding cake for the squirrels to find. The cakes had been preserved in the freezer for decades, commemorating the marriages of David and Claudia and of one of their kids. And they've been coming out to be displayed on special anniversaries and now will be forever a part of the ecosystem and the foundations of their home. From Sophie Meyer. Celebrating over 1 year of stable scans after surgery to remove a brain tumor in September 2021. From Elizabeth Larson. Our own Ayla McDonald is visiting after being away for 6 months during a study abroad. Yes. From Beth Simpson. This is the last time Solstice is celebrated. From here, it's peace, peace, peace. Christine Cahill. Son Tristan will arrive home on December 24th. He's been living in Japan since August 2018. We can't wait to see him. Philip Eichelberger. Joy. Thanks is not quite enough for the joy of transportation with my recent 6 weeks of treatments that the Care Corps provided to me for my cancer diagnosis. Thanks a lot. Many blessings to all. There's lots of exclamation points. From Jerry and Priscilla. Huge thanks to Michael and Cindy Louie for Friday night's carols and cookies. So much fun listening to young and old. From David Wolf. He says, this is nearly universal, joy and sorrow. I'm glad to have many good body parts, loving communities, and a sense of joy and clarity. There are so many body parts that don't work as well anymore. A joy from Marcia Clenard. Charlie and I will be celebrating our 26th wedding anniversary on Wednesday. We were married here in our sanctuary on the winter solstice by Elaine Gehrman on a beautiful day. A joy from Katie Goslin. Joy for the possibilities, community, and hope as I attend my first in-person service in months. Joy and concern from Umita. Please keep my parents in your thoughts. They're in Mumbai, emptying the apartment they called home and saying final goodbyes to family and friends before returning to Connecticut. They are 87 and don't plan to return to India again. Marilyn and I just returned from 4 weeks helping them in the process. We're grateful to have been part of this huge life change with them. Joy from Sam Bashirs. Joy from my stepmother, Barbara Bashirs, who is spending the weekend in Chicago with my wife, Lynn, enjoying Christmas time in the city. Thank you all so much for the joys that you have shared, the many and varied joys you have shared. And know that for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in this season, you are still seen and held by this community. Know that you are part of something, a network of love that connects you to everyone who gathers here week after week, year after year. I hope that you feel held up and supported by that love today and always. Now please take this moment of quiet prayer or meditation to find your own center or your own words asking for what you need most. As the music plays, let us breathe together and rest in the stillness. Hello.
My name is Elizabeth Larson, and I am doing the solstice reading for us today. The winter solstice, better? Okay. My name is Elizabeth Larson, and I'll be reading for our solstice reading today. The winter solstice is coming Wednesday, the shortest day of the year for us in the Northern Hemisphere. Barely more than 9 hours of daylight here in central Illinois. It is a day that is marked in pagan and earth-centered religions with bonfires, tree decorating, food and drink, and telling stories that evoke the balance between light and dark, the wheel of the year, and the eventual return of the sun. In honor of the solstice, today's reading comes from us from Learning to Walk in the Dark, a book by contemporary American author Barbara Taylor Brown. She writes, "Our Lady of the Underground never asked me to choose between day and night. If I want to flourish, I need the ever-changing light of darkness as much as I need the full light of day. Give your heart to them both," she says. When I complain that I cannot see as well at night as I can during the days, she tells me this is a good thing. Maybe it will slow you down. When I tell her I cannot get as much done at night because the darkness makes me sleepy, she says, yes, that is the plan. Maybe you will get some rest. When I point out that slowing down just makes me think about things that I would rather not think about, she laughs. Do you think that not thinking about them will make them go away? How do we develop the courage to walk in the dark if we are never asked to practice?
We as Unitarian Universalists know that our circle of care doesn't stop at our church doors. We are deeply connected to the community we find ourselves in and to the wider world. Christmas is coming, and later this week we'll be having 2 Christmas Eve services. Both will be in person and live streamed at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Saturday, Christmas Eve night. The 5 p.m. service will be led by me and will be more geared toward kids and families with joyful chaos as our goal. The 7 p.m. service will be led by Reverend KB and will be more contemplative and peaceful. Both services will have nursery care available. Both will include a candlelit singing of Silent Night. Both will include our choir. Please also plan to bring cookies to share if you have them and an appetite to eat them. We'll be having an all-congregation fellowship hour for cookie eating between the services around 6 p.m. The next couple Sundays will be falling on federal holidays, Christmas Day and New Year's Day, so we're enjoying our ability to gather online and be creative in worship planning. So next Sunday, Christmas Day, no one will be here in the building. Instead, you're invited at our usual 10:15 start time to stream whichever Christmas Eve service you didn't get the chance to attend the night before. The following Sunday, New Year's Day, the building will be open with the worship committee leading a 10:15 viewing party of the thoughtful service that they're putting together for us, featuring a sermon from the president of our national denomination, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. Sunday, January 8th, will be back to normal with a multi-generational service here in the sanctuary, led by Reverend KB. Every Sunday, in recognition of our very real and material interdependence and reliance on one another, we pass the plate, take a collection, and share our offering with an organization doing the work of justice in the world. For our December Sundays, we're sharing our plate with the Unitarian partner churches in support of the ancient minority faith communities in northern India and Eastern Europe, from which our UU tradition descends. Our relationship to these partner churches is part of our commitment to global community and friendship across borders. You can give by text or through the online portal on our website, or if you're here in the sanctuary, the basket will be passed and checks can be made out to UUCUC. Half of what you give will go toward the ministry of this church. Half will go directly to the partner churches. We invite you to give whatever is generous for you. Know that anything you contribute will be gratefully received and put to use, making a real impact for people who need it. May the basket be passed.
As the choir comes forward, I did put the text to this piece in the bulletin, and I'd like to just draw your attention to one specific stanza. What does the future hold in store? Where has our journey brought us? How can we learn from what's gone before? What has experience taught us?
I meant what I said earlier about wanting to use our time today to remember that there are holidays other than Christmas at this time of year. It's not always that Hanukkah and Solstice line up so neatly, and on the Sunday before Christmas, no less. Perfect timing. Perfect timing for a Sunday morning service about these festivals of light and dark, warmth and cold, and breathing new life into old traditions. So I knew for months ahead of time what I would be preaching about today. All of our festivals of light, what they can mean to us. And then on November 19th, there was a mass shooting at a gay club in Colorado. And we gathered together right here the next day, lighting candles in sorrow and remembrance. And that same weekend, November 20th, the Department of Homeland Security released a special bulletin warning of increased risk of domestic terror for, quote, the LGBTQ plus community, schools, racial and religious minorities, government facilities, and U.S. critical infrastructure. On December 3rd, a church not so different from ours, the First Unitarian Universalist Church in Columbus, Ohio, was surrounded by armed men with their faces covered in matching white cloths, holding flags with crosses, some giving Nazi salutes, and waving signs declaring that the drag queen story hour the church was hosting was pedophilia and was spreading AIDS. That same week, a world-famous celebrity musician said in a widely broadcast interview that he likes Hitler and loves Nazis, and afterward, he was invited to dinner by our nation's former president. Not exactly a festive atmosphere to be celebrating the start of Hanukkah. It's certainly possible to miss a few headlines in our overwhelming and dizzying news cycle, and some of us, I imagine, are even making an effort to deliberately dodge the news, trying to be fully present with friends or family for these precious few weeks when we travel to see each other. We all have things going on, new babies arriving, difficult diagnoses, and if you are trying to rest in the uncomplicated joy of this season, that is amazing. I am genuinely thrilled to know that. If you're riding the euphoric high of seeing a federal law protecting marriage equality, I am too. Please believe me when I say that I am not here today to bum everyone out, to guilt you for not being completely plugged into the awful current events. But I also know that there are people in this room, in our faith community, who are feeling, in the wake of these headlines, an existential fear for their lives and their families. And I want for those people, you, if that's you, to know that you are seen, you are not crazy, and you are not alone. A Jewish colleague of mine was saying recently of religious leaders everywhere, if you aren't speaking about anti-Semitism from your pulpit right now, then you need to give some serious thought as to why that is. So it no longer feels possible, no longer feels right to talk about how tonight is the first night of Hanukkah without talking about everything else that's going on. The context in which families will be lighting their menorahs tonight. The weight of the choice they have to make to display that light in the window, depending on what town or what neighborhood they live in. Not because I want to stir up fears from the pulpit. I don't think that's useful. But because it's important to acknowledge the fears that some of us are already living with. And a gift of this dark season can be giving us time to think about the things we'd rather ignore, since ignoring them won't make them go away. So let's kindle a small flame and hold up the light together today. The original Hanukkah story was about rebuilding in the aftermath of a war. The stories of a group of ragtag warriors who rose up against a king who had outlawed Jewish religious practice. Those warriors, called the Maccabees, took up arms and fought to drive the king's powerful army out of their temple. And despite their small numbers, the Maccabees won. The temple in Jerusalem, heart of the Jewish faith at the time, had been desecrated and ruined. The eternal flame burning on its altar had blown out. The Maccabees found a single jar of oil, not enough for the eternal flame they would need if they wanted to restore the sacred space to what it had been, but they lit the flame anyway. and sent someone to find more oil. It took famously 8 days to come back with the oil they would need for the flame. The first jar should have run out after just one night, but when they came back, the flame was still burning. The temple was still a sacred space. It was a miracle, the Hanukkah miracle, the flame staying lit and the temple being restored. Hanukkah is actually not a story in the Torah. It's not in the Hebrew Bible. It's not a high holiday, but it is a story of survival and courage in the face of overwhelming odds, which gives it staying power, perennial relevance. And now, when Jewish people all over the world celebrate it through these 8 long nights, they're connected not just with the miraculous victory of the Maccabees, but with all the generations between then and now who have passed these traditions on. These old stories, these ancient traditions, aren't just quaint or fun cultural baubles with no deeper meaning. Hanukkah isn't just about spinning a dreidel and eating cookies and latkes. Just like Christmas isn't just about presents, or Yule isn't just about burning a big log. These traditions have all been passed down all the way to today because they're meant to give us something to hold on to. Tools that might help us get through our own dark times. I see the candles are dripping dangerously. I'm going to extinguish them. Try not to take symbolism from that. I just know from experience how stressful it can be to watch a teetering candle. These traditions are meant to give us tools to get through our own dark times, to help us light the lamps when our own temples are desecrated, and we need to believe that light can miraculously return. And I don't want to rely too much on darkness as the metaphorical bad here, because too much of that, and we let our brains start to associate badness with all darker things, including dark hair, dark eyes, or dark skin. So don't let me mistakenly paint with too broad a brush what the meaning of light and dark can be. I do want to talk about the ways in which the literal seasonal dark and cold of winter can be weaponized by those who would use it to do harm. Because something else that made the news this month was a coordinated shooting that took out the power grid in Moore County, North Carolina, knocking out power to 40,000 households and businesses. And though no one has been arrested and it hasn't been conclusively proven to be a targeted hate crime, loud voices in the community immediately following the attack proudly claimed it as God's punishment against the local LGBTQ community. This came just days after the shooting at Club Q in Colorado. It has been easy to feel among the queer community this past month like there are safe spaces being desecrated, sacred lamps being blown out, and a serious, serious need for miracles. So what does it mean to celebrate Hanukkah at a time like this, when that ancient story feels almost painfully resonant? What are the spiritual and communal tools that have been passed down and might help us all survive in cold and hostile days? Other than the lighting of candles and the sharing of gifts, one lesson we can take from Hanukkah is the wisdom of being reckless with our willingness to recover, with our commitment to what we hold most dear. The Maccabees could have waited before lighting the lamp that would make the temple sacred again. Could have waited until they knew for sure that there would definitely be enough oil. But they didn't. They saw what needed to be restored, what needed to be healed, and didn't hesitate. And from them, we're reminded to not hold back for fear of running out, or for fear that our successes will be imperfect or incomplete. That the best way to get miraculous help is to be brave first, and be willing to start even before you can see how things will end. And the solstice, too, later this week, isn't just a bonfire festival, but has something to teach us about not shying away from the dark, but instead acknowledging its relationship and balance with light, learning to walk through it with courage. The winter solstice teaches us about resisting false positivity, the mistaken notion that history is one journey from darkness into light, onward and upward forever. The solstice reminds us that the wheel of the year is turning, and that every historical moment, including ours, is part of a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that lets us take lessons from the past and try again and again to learn from them. Even the Christian season of Advent, for which we have lit our candles each Sunday this month, gives us a lesson in what it means to be nurtured by a period of darkness, like a baby growing in the darkness of the womb. Relearning how to trust in what we can't always see and in the promise of new life, as well as the reality that there is work that needs to be done to prepare for and welcome that promise. Halfway across the world, the Ukrainian people are suffering their own power grid attacks, and my eye was caught by a news story of the Ukrainian Philharmonic Orchestra stubbornly continuing to play concerts in pitch-black music halls, lighting their music stands with small battery-powered lamps. As long as there is music, the orchestra director told the reporter interviewing him, even in the bomb shelter, there is life. The danger of continuing to perform in a war zone is nothing, because so long as there is music, there is life. What would be the meaning of surviving if it had to be in a cold and silent world? They light the sacred lamp and trust that the oil will arrive in time and play on in the dark. The story of the Christmas menorahs from earlier in 1993 Billings, Montana is part of this too. The refusal to be frightened into silence when glass shatters and lets in the cold air of winter. Along with it, the chilling knowledge that some of your neighbors hate you and want to do you harm. How easy it is to imagine a version of that story in which the little boy's family quietly patches up their window, files their police report, and moves their menorah to an inner room. We just have to look at the number of drag storytime events that have been canceled, the number of LGBTQ books quietly removed from shelves after threats. How many times have those who are outnumbered and targeted by hate get successfully pressured into falling silent, shrinking themselves down and extinguishing their light for the sake of survival? Survival in a cold and silent world. It's easier to back down, especially when you feel unsure if anyone else is going to stand up with you. It's a sad truth that stories like Billings, a whole town coming together in solidarity with a targeted group, making their own homes targets for potential hate in order to protect others, is an exceptional story of courage rather than a commonplace happening. I reached out to Rabbi Allen at Sinai Temple here in town and to the offices of Uniting Pride to let them know I was planning to preach this sermon today, to ask whether there were any specific calls to action that might make a difference to their communities. They both responded immediately, just relieved to know that there would be folks beyond their Jewish and LGBTQ community groups spending time thinking about this at all, paying attention to these alarming trends, and helping to shoulder the weight of fear that's been carried too much by them alone. Because the truth is, they've been here before. Jewish communities and queer communities, they've been dealing with violent, vocal, organized hatred for generations, for longer than Unitarian Universalism has existed. Pull on this current thread and it goes back and back and back. The AIDS panic, Stonewall, the Shoah, pogroms, blood libel, these are communities with deep histories of trauma. But with that, deep, deep experience surviving, and deep experience fighting back against despair. And there's comfort in that, in remembering that this is not the first time hate has risen up, fueled by ignorance or by powerful men seeking influence. This is old. This is familiar. We remember that the opposite of the light of Hanukkah is not darkness, Because darkness can be good. Darkness is just mystery and possibility. Darkness is just the unknown. The opposite of the light of Hanukkah is despair. The despair that tells us to give up before we are defeated, to quiet ourselves, cancel our gatherings, dim the lights in our windows, take down our banners, and don't bother relighting the lamp in a temple that has been desecrated. So we will fight that despair. We'll remind ourselves and each other that we do not need to face it alone. Reach out to our neighbors and let them know they have a friend and ally nearby, especially our neighbors flying pride flags and those who have 2 candles lit in their window tonight and 3 tomorrow night. We will continue to celebrate our trans and gender nonconforming siblings and children and elders, celebrate them more, with more drag story times, more pride events, continue to push for legislation protecting marginalized communities, and practice civil disobedience when laws aren't enough. And in very practical terms, though Sinai Temple and Uniting Pride didn't have any immediate needs when I asked, the channel is open. And should the worst occur and our local community experiences hateful threats or vandalism or attack, we know who we stand alongside, and our allies will know they can turn to us for solidarity and support. We know better than to let the threats and posturing of hate drive us to despair, drive us to make our light smaller in the name of safety. We will shine brighter, spread the light farther, be louder and even more reckless in our willingness to commit to true healing. All the lights of this season, and one we haven't yet mentioned, is our own flaming chalice. We light it whenever we gather, but most UUs don't actually know where the symbol comes from. The symbol of a flaming chalice originated in the early years of World War II, when the Unitarian Service Committee was created in order to smuggle Jewish and other refugees out of Nazi-occupied France. They needed a symbol that would communicate safe harbor across language and religious boundaries, without being so obvious that it would raise suspicions. And this is what they came up with: a cup for sharing, a flame for hope, a lamp in the darkness, and a safe haven for those escaping hate. The flaming chalice has come to mean many different things to many generations of UUs, but that original legacy feels particularly important to remember today. Hate has always been with us, and we have always had the tools to fight against it. Tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, and tonight, as dusk falls, families all across the globe will gather together to sing and pray and celebrate the miracle of bright warmth in the cold dark. Though there is no temple that needs rededicating, no eternally burning oil lamp to be relit, we are needed, all of us, to be there in solidarity as those candles are lit, to rededicate ourselves to the miracle of trust in a time of anxiety, courage in a time of fear, and hope in a time of despair. Together, may we choose to keep that flame lit today and every day. May it be so, and amen. Our closing hymn, Light One Candle, was written by activist and Jewish American folk singer Peter Yarrow, 1/3 of the popular singing group Peter, Paul, and Mary. He wrote the song to be a call for the end of war and for reconciliation between all peoples. It has a lot of words and can be difficult to follow, so today we are lucky enough to have Janet Revell Barrett to lend her voice to the verses, and the rest of us can just listen and join in only for the choruses, which begin, "Don't let the light go out." Please rise in body or in spirit and join in listening to and singing number 221 in the Gray Hymnal, Light One Candle.
Light the Maccabee children with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. And light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain that we learned long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. And light one candle to bring us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly? We keep it alive in that flame. What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they're not died in vain? Have we come this far always believing that justice would somehow prevail? This is the burden and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, it shine through our love and our tears. Repeat it, please. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears.
May our rich and manifold traditions continue to remind us of our commitments to this world. May all of our Jewish, LGBTQ, and otherwise marginalized siblings and friends be seen and be held safely in love this season. May we rededicate ourselves to the miracle of wholeness in a time of fracture. May love shine forth through us today. May light of reason guide our way. May hope, peace, and joy become a flame that burns in everyone. Please join me in saying our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this light, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.